I'll start. I started actually as a CAP cadet back in 1965, I think, maybe 64. I went through the cadet program and off to college and into the Air Force. In the Air Force, I was a fighter pilot, flew the F-4, F-15 for a number of years, about half my career. And then the second half of my career, I spent as a fighter test pilot. Wrapped that up in '95 and moved on to Southwest Airlines, where I was a captain for 21 years. CAP experience, I dropped out of CAP when I was in the Air Force, rejoined again about 2004, and have been active in CAP since then, initially in Washington Wing, and then during the last 10 years, part-time there and part-time here in Hawaii Wing. Mission pilot and mission check pilot. I want to first of all introduce two co-instructors. We're kind of tag teaming and splitting up the work here. And we'll start with Colonel Chaz Dryden, if you'll introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm the old man in the sea with the beard. And I was in CAP in Maryland Wing for a long period of time, from about 76 until 82, and got out for a number of reasons. During that time I was there, I was director of cadet programs for Maryland Wing, simultaneously a squadron commander, mission pilot, and went to National Staff College and all the way through. I've got a Gil Rob Wilson, and I've been with Hawaii Wing since 2011, and done a number of things. Deputy commander for cadets with 2 squadrons, and then eventually squadron commander, and was relieved by Daryl, who's doing a great job now. I was a mission pilot. I'm not current anymore, either as a pilot or a mission pilot. And that's about it. And I'm interested, I like to do a lot of training, and I'm a scuba instructor by profession.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. And then my second co-instructor is Daryl Ng, new to CAP, but actually an experienced pilot. He's actually doing a dual role. He's a co-instructor for some of the modules, and then he'll also be a student. He has, I'll let him explain his flying background, but he's well suited to teach the modules that he's going to do. So, Daryl?
Thank you. Yes. I'm Daryl Ng. I am the squadron commander for the Maui Composite Squadron. I've been in CAP for almost a year now, so I'm pretty new to CAP. I'm a private pilot, and I guess the reason Lieutenant Colonel Denizik chose me to teach some of these modules is that I'm currently working on my instrument rating, and a lot of this stuff is pretty fresh in my mind. So I'll be teaching some of the modules like weather and you know, how to plot and read sectional charts and such. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, I've been the squadron commander since December.
What we promised today is valuable training. It will give you practical knowledge you need to be a successful scanner. It will also give you the knowledge you need to pass the test. There will be a test at the end. It's open book, and it will be 80% passing score, so I don't think anybody will have problems with that. But there is quite a bit of material. When I looked at the test, it kind of surprised me. Wow, a lot of things. So do pay attention. There will be some redundancy, some repetition. Some of that is accidental, but most of it is actually intentional because we want to drive home points there. So as far as training material, there's a list of training material there. And Jen, could you explain to the students how to get their hands on this stuff?
Yes. So if you go to the Hawaii Wing website, under programs, you'll see a listing for emergency services. And then under emergency services training, this is where you actually signed up for the course. So On this, in the sidebar, there's a zip archive for scanner training materials, as well as the slide decks that you're going to be seeing during the training.
Yeah, so these slides are all available. And I do want to, I guess, apologize or acknowledge at least that we shamelessly stole them from California Wing. California Wing put this training together. In a couple places, we've changed the word to Hawaii, but this is definitely a California Wing product. California Wing is a huge wing with a lot of squadrons and very heavy emergency services orientation. So they're real trailblazers in that respect there. So mission objectives, we want to give you the training you need so you become a valuable crew member for CAP missions. Some of this, for some of you, will be a stepping stone as you move on to observer and to mission pilot. And for others, you'll be a valuable asset to CAP as a scanner there. A few people have mentioned the ability for recurrent training. Actually, to renew your scanner rating, you do not have to take this course again. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience once you get it loaded into Squitters. However, things do change, and hopefully we'll be giving you the most current information. Some of the references that we'll be using, the FAR's, Federal Aviation Regulations, so we'll be referring to that. Halfway down, you see CAPR 70-1 flight operations. That's the Bible for CAP flight operations. That has just changed. A new one just came out there. 60-3 regulation talks more about emergency services specifically, whereas 70-1 is in general. Probably as a scanner, you don't need to be too involved in 100-1, but we will be talking about comm procedures somewhat. There's 3 radios in most of our airplanes. One of the radios is a quote CAP radio, and as a scanner, you'll need to know how to operate that radio and how to use proper terminology. So we'll be covering that. What is a mission scanner? A mission scanner is an integral part of the CAP aircrew. In fact, when you think about it, the mission scanner is the most important element of the CAP aircrew. The whole infrastructure that we have set up, from our incident command structure, our flight release officers, our mission pilots, mission observers, their entire job is essentially to put the mission scanner in a position where he can observe with his eyeballs what the objective is, whether it be a lost aircraft, missing person, a marijuana drug site, assessing damage to bridges or infrastructure. The whole idea is and the whole CAP structure is set up to put you as a scanner in position to do your job. Some of the missions there, you can see search and rescue, disaster response. We got involved. Let me back up. On search and rescue, in Hawaii Wing, the lead for search and rescue is actually the Coast Guard. Because of the maritime environment here, they are the ones that are better equipped for that kind of mission. However, having said that, we do work with the Coast Guard. At times, they will assign CAP to do search and rescue on the overland and over water, actually, as well. And we bring some unique capabilities to the table in the form of direction finding equipment that can locate emergency locator transmitters that aircraft have. That's a capability we have that the Navy or the Coast Guard does not. Disaster response, our most recent one was on the Big Island with the volcanic eruptions. Another important duty here is tsunami warning. In fact, that's one of the primary duties in Hawaii Wing. Counter drug has kind of gone away. We used to do a lot of counter drug in CAP, but now with the advent of legalized cannabis, that is pretty much gone away. We serve as targets for the F-22s out of Hickam. They practice intercepting low, slow moving targets. Of course, we're available to transport goods, and that's been happening a lot actually on the mainland, transporting supplies since this virus broke out, transporting test equipment and so forth. As far as specific mission scanner duties, scanning out the window with your eyeball. There's an additional qualification you need to become a aerial photographer. Duties also include some navigation duties, keeping a log of what goes on, and of course, as a crew member, contributing to the safe execution of that flight there. Initially, as a trainee, some prereqs for continuing your training is you need to have GES, or General Emergency Services, complete, and that's online training that CAP has. You have to be a minimum age of 18 years of age. For our cadet who is here, I don't know what your age is, but if you're less than 18, you're certainly welcome to participate. However, you'll have to repeat the course once you turn 18, because that's one of the prereqs for starting the training there. We'll talk later about the SQUITers, which is Specialty Qualification Training Record, SQTR. And that's how we keep track of the specific mission objectives that you'll be completing as we finish this course here. In addition to the academic training, you'll need to finish a couple of, in addition to this academic training, you have to finish a couple of FEMA classes, ICS 100 and ICS 700. And those courses, if you haven't done them, talk about the command and control structure. What happened is during the 9/11 attacks, there were all these different agencies responding: the fire department, the police department, rescue agencies, FAA, and so forth. And they all are trying to coordinate their efforts, and they couldn't talk to each other. They're all, radios were on different frequencies. They use different procedures, different structures for managing their response. And it was really hectic, and it made a significant detrimental effect on our response. So after 9/11, we as a nation realized that we need to standardize the way we respond to emergencies. And so we developed this incident command structure system, and that's what you'd learn about in these IS courses. In addition, you'll require 2 flights, training flights. They do not have to be actual SAR missions or SAR-X missions. Let me repeat that. Your training flights do not have to be actual SAR-X missions. Some people will tell you that they do, but they don't. You need to go on 2 flights. One of those flights, you should be in the front right seat, so you can get a chance to operate the radios and also obtain your position using the GPS. The other one could be in the front right seat or one of the 2 rear seats there. So you do need the two flights, and of course unit certification and so forth. Okay, so let's talk specific scanner duties and responsibilities. And as I alluded to before, you're really the incident commander. That's IC. The IC's eyes and ears in the field. You're the one that's actually doing the hunting, the looking, the searching. Everybody else is there to support you as you do your mission there. As far as the crew seating, we'll talk about that in a minute. I've got another slide that talks about that, I think. One of your duties, in addition to looking out the window, is when you're not actively scanning, the mission scanner keeps a mission log. And so you need to keep a log that tracks times and locations where you are, any significant sightings, and what their locations were, and so forth. That's the kind of information you need so that when you come back after the mission and you debrief, you'll be able to recall those items for the incident commander so that they can decide what kind of follow-up action, if any, would be appropriate there. And of course, within your capabilities, assisting with navigation to and from the search area. Once the airplane is in the search area, that's pretty much a mission pilot responsibility to put the to fly the appropriate search pattern to put you in position to do your job. In an ideal world, we'd have 4 people in the airplane. We'd have a mission pilot, a mission observer occupying the front 2 seats, and then 2 scanners in the back. For a number of reasons, that very rarely happens. One is we don't have that many people, particularly in Hawaii Wing, that are ES qualified, so we don't have that luxury. Second, you might get into some weight considerations where you would exceed the weight limits of the airplane, so we'd have to reduce the number of crew members. And those would be the primary reasons, lack of personnel and weight and balance there. A scanner could be asked to fly during a ELT or emergency locator transmitter search. Your scanner training does not qualify you to operate that equipment. That's what observers learn to do. But sometimes we're in a situation where the pilot just needs somebody to help them out. And even if it's looking for other traffic, maintaining awareness of altitude above the ground, those kind of things, you can be a valuable asset to the crew there. And our mission pilots are trained on using that equipment as well. Prior to the flight, the mission scanner is the one that pre-flights the personal equipment, the emergency equipment. So he's the one that's going to pre-flight the raft, the LPUs, life preserver units, those kind of things. Whereas the mission pilot will pre-flight the aircraft itself there. Also, many pilots, myself included, ask whomever's in the right seat to run the checklist for us. So we'll call for checklist items, and then you'll read the checklist and check the responses from the pilot. The aerial photographer is actually a growing mission area, and we're being asked more and more to take aerial photographs, both before a disaster, taking reconnaissance type pictures and having baselines for FEMA. FEMA stands for Federal Emergency Management Agency. They're the ones that are in charge of managing the federal response to major disasters. But FEMA is asking for reference pictures so that they can have something to compare to when there is a natural disaster. So I think that's going to be a growing area for CAP. So here we talked about the seating. This is a picture looking down on the from the outside the airplane, above it looking down. So the pilot obviously is going to be in the front left seat. Ideal situation would be an observer in the front right seat. And if you only have a total of 3, then we put the scanner, the number 1 scanner, would sit behind the pilot. If you had 2 scanners, same thing. 1 scanner would sit front right seat. The other scanner would sit in the left rear seat. That way you have somebody looking out of both sides of the airplane. Remember, the pilot's job is not to be scanning. His job is to fly that airplane in a safe manner and put the airplane in a position where the scanners can do their job. So as a result, the pilot is not going to be looking necessarily in the same areas or at the same things as the scanner is himself. That's a real important point to remember. Okay, so as a CAP scanner, you will be a aircrew member, And so these rules about crew duty limitations do apply to you. And don't let anybody tell you any different. Some people will tell you that these apply only to the pilot, but that's not true. Any crew member on a CAP mission has to abide by these restrictions. And there's two concepts that we have to understand. One is your duty day, and that's when the period when you're working. I'll talk about more of that in a second. And then the other one is crew rest. That's when you're going to have time off. And so both those are regulated by CAP Regulation 70-1. And the crew duty day begins when you first do your official business for CAP. It doesn't mean when you first show up at the airplane. It's when you do the very first thing for CAP that day. So if you show up and read a summary from yesterday's flying, for example, that would be your first duty. And so the clock starts then. And that crew duty day ends when the engines are shut down at the end of the mission. So that's your crew duty day. The limit that CAP has on a crew duty day is 14 hours. So from the time you do your first CAP mission or first CAP activity on a day until you shut down the motor and you're done for the day, that can be no more than 14 hours. There is and that's scheduled time. That's not actual time, it's scheduled time. If there is some extenuating circumstance where they need you to continue official duties, flight duties, past the 14 hours, it can be extended to 16 hours. But that takes the concurrence of all of the crew members, so all 2, 3, or 4 people in that airplane, and the concurrence of senior wing leadership, specifically the commander, vice commander, or deputy for operations. It takes one of those people and all crew members to agree to that. And if you don't agree, no harm, no foul. They don't, you're protected by the reg. There's also a limit. The maximum hours of scheduled flight time is 9 hours. And typically, that's going to be not a problem. Normally, you wouldn't fly that many hours in a day. You might fly like 2, 3 hour sorties in a day total. So that's duty day. And now, how do you recover from that 14-hour day? You recover by entering crew rest. And your crew rest period starts when you perform your last official CAP duty. So if you're a pilot, for example, and then you get done with that, and then you go into the mission base and you're helping the schedule, put together the schedule for the next day, or you're giving somebody some training, all that is, you're still on duty. So your crew rest hasn't started until you're done with that. You require 10 hours of crew rest. Interestingly, transportation to and from your quarters is not an official duty. So during that 10 hours, if you have to drive half an hour to your hotel, stay there, drive a half hour back in the morning, that can be part of that 10 hours. It's really important to understand the difference between duty day and crew rest. People mix those up all the time. So yeah, we're obviously very interested in a safe operation. And the FAA has an acronym called I'm Safe. And the acronym is used to make sure that you are prepared to fly safely. And CAP has adopted this acronym from the Air Force. If I were you, I would memorize what each one of these are. I think it might be important to you in the near term, like Wednesday. So I'm safe. The I stands for illness. And you can read there if you have any kind of illness which could affect in flight. One of the things that people don't realize is having a blocked sinus or an ear block can really be very significant because of pressure changes as we climb and descend. And particularly in mountainous areas, we can do some fairly rapid descents as we go down a canyon. And so those pressure changes can really take you out of the loop if you're not able to clear your ears properly. So I for illness, M for medication. Are you taking something new that you're not used to yet? Whether that be an over-the-counter drug or a prescription drug. You know, if you've been on a prescription drug for a number of years, or a number of months for that matter, and you know what its effects are, if any, that's one thing, but it wouldn't be smart to start a new heart medicine and then go fly the next morning. Stress, psychological, emotional stress. You know, this COVID-19, we're all under some level of stress. Alcohol, the limits in CAP are you can't drink within 50 feet of an airplane, and you can't smoke within the last 8 hours. Or did I get that backwards? Anybody listening?
That was backwards, Wayne.
Yeah, I know. I just testing, make sure somebody's listening. Yeah, 8 hours is the from bottle to throttle is the rule of thumb there. Fatigue, that can certainly be a factor. And so if you're so tired that you can go through the motions, but you're not an effective crew member, there's no point in flying that sortie. So you need to fess up. And then the last one, the E at the end, is emotion. Some people will put the emotion in the stress. So the S for stress would include emotions. And then they substitute for E, eat, E-A-T. You know, we can get some long days. You get out there, you fly a sortie before you had breakfast, and now they want you to go out again. Your blood sugar's low, and you're not operating efficiently. So that's, I'm safe. So I would commit that one to memory. So yeah, some of the CAP peacetime missions that we have are supporting FEMA, like I talked about, search and rescue. On the mainland, CAP is a very large player in inland search and rescue. And in many states, they're the primary lead, unlike here in Hawaii because of the maritime environment that we're in. Also, counter drug. I spent many an hour doing counter drug missions. Some of them were pretty interesting. Some of them were reconnaissance missions where it would just be a mission pilot and 1 or 2 scanners looking for marijuana growth. Other times, we would be taking law enforcement officials airborne to facilitate their reconnaissance. We had another mission where we were high cover for DEA helicopters. And actually they had the Washington Army National Guard chopped to the DEA, and they were down low, like 100 feet, buzzing around these helicopters. And we were safety chase, high bird for them to give them comm coverage. If they were to make an emergency landing, to roll rescue crews, and also to clear their flight path, looking for power lines, towers, obstructions, and things like that, and warning them of those in advance before they got to something like that. Some other missions are, Homeland Security. We have MOUs, memoranda of understanding, with a lot of different agencies like the Red Cross, Salvation Army, and so forth. So those are things that are already all pre-negotiated, and they're sitting on a shelf ready to be dusted off and implemented if required. Talking about insurance, anytime you get out of bed, you increase your risk of mishap. And so obviously in CAP flight operations, there is an increased risk of a mishap. But fortunately, between the federal government and the CAP Corporation, we literally got you covered. So I'll talk briefly about different types of insurance, just so you're aware of what is going on there. For liability insurance, in other words, if you do something that causes another party harm and they want to seek retribution, that's liability. And so under the Federal Employee Compensation Act, if you're operating on a official Air Force mission, and we call that an A mission or a B mission, more about that later. But if you're on an official CAP Air Force authorized mission, which most of our sorties are in search and rescue, then you are indemnified from being sued. The person, if you, let's say wheel falls off your airplane and goes through somebody's roof and ends up in their living room, they can't sue you personally at all. They can sue the US government and seek compensation, but you as a federal employee, you are exempt from any kind of responsibility. So that's under a Air Force assigned mission, AFAM. Now, if you are on a corporate mission, which we don't do that many C missions. C mission would be more if you're self-funding, going out to do some proficiency flying, or maybe the federal government doesn't see a interest in what CAP is trying to do, but CAP decides that they want to be participate in some kind of activity. That would be a C mission. For a C mission, you're not covered under the FECA, but the CAP does have commercial insurance that is available for that. So we try as much as possible to do most of our flying under the A and B missions there. By the way, the difference in A mission is a mission that's funded by the Air Force. So they pick up the tab, they authorize the mission, request that we do it, and they pay for it. A B mission is one that the Air Force concurs is a legitimate use of our aircraft and people, but it's not paid for by the Air Force. So it might be paid for, like in Washington, Hawaii wing, by HIEMA, Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. And so that's a B mission. Then a C mission is one that the Air Force does not endorse themselves. They don't prohibit participation, but that's something the corporation, the CAP corporation, decides on their own to do. That indemnification that I talked about, where you're not liable for actions on a Air Force assigned mission, A or B mission, that is covered by a law called the Federal Tort Claims Act. And basically, if you want to get more information on this kind of stuff, if you're really into it, you can look at CAP regulation 90-5. It's an old regulation. It's been around for many years, but the insurance aspects in CAP have not really changed. We do have also aviation liability insurance. So what's an example of that? Maybe if you coming into land and you got in a little low, added power, and spooked somebody's pet goat, and the pet goat ran into a barbed wire fence. Well, that would be aviation liability, but we do have corporate coverage for that. Really important point, this is a foot stomper, and that is we need to report our mishaps. In order to avail ourselves of this coverage that we have both through the federal government and through our corporate commercial insurance, it's very important that we report mishaps promptly. Otherwise, you might not get the coverage that provides there. To give you an idea a little bit about the difference in coverage, by the way, for medical coverage, if you have an accident, if you're under an A or B mission with the federal coverage, you've got full medical. So they'll spend whatever it takes to take care of you there. Whereas if you got the CAP corporate insurance, their limit for medical coverage is only $8,000. So, you know, and $8,000 doesn't go very far these days. So one would hope that you would have your own kind of medical coverage that would cover you beyond that. And also CAP is a secondary payer. So your insurance would pay first. Then if there was like a deductible, the CAP would pay that deductible up to $8,000. Death benefits, essentially they consider you, for the purposes of insurance, a federal employee at level GS9 step 1. And currently your death benefit is based on half your salary. That would be about $23,000. So that's what your spouse or significant other might get. If you're covered under the CAP insurance, that would only be, the death benefit is only $10,000. So you can see now why, as much as possible, we try to fly under A and B coverage there. I had some phone numbers I was going to pass out. As far as reporting goes, if there's a mishap in the, there's a book called the Aircraft Information File, AIF. It's in every airplane. It's in also all our vehicles, and we have posters posted in our squadron sites. But there's a number to call there to report an accident. And if you have a mishap, probably the best order would be to call your commander first, let the commander know. And then immediately after that, call this number. It's a Pacific region number, toll-free number. And once they answer it, it asks you what wing you're in. And then it transfers you over and you report the accident there, and it goes through a telephone tree and notifies everybody else. So again, mishap, notify your commander first, and then after you notify your commander, call this Pacific region hotline number, and that's how you report it. This slide just shows that we have a lot of agreements. I already talked about some of the agencies that we have agreements with, and it talks about the scope, what we'd be doing, what kind of reimbursement is involved, who is in the chain of command, those kinds of things. That's generally well above your pay grade as a CAP scanner. You'll become familiar with several CAP forms if you're not already. The Form 101, that is basically a emergency services qualification identification card. It shows what emergency services skills that you have at what level, whether you're a trainee or you are qualified or you're an instructor kind of thing. The squitter I talked about, that's where you're going to record your training events, completion of training events. The Form 104 and the 104 A and B. The Form 104 is basically like a CAP flight plan. That's where you get your tasking assignment to a certain search area. That'll be done normally by the staff at a big mission base. If it's a small remote thing, you might have to fill that out yourself based on just a telephone call with the incident commander. So we do that online. The 104A, you print those out, blanks, and I've got copies on the website that Jen referred to earlier today. And the 104A is how, as a note-taking aid to help you while you're actually flying. Talked about the 104. The 108, that's really gone away now. It used to be used for reimbursement, but generally most of that stuff is done at the incident commander level and not at your level there. When you do fill out forms though in CAP, it's important to make it accurate, print clearly, and if there's a box in a form that doesn't apply, then mark it as NA. Don't leave it just blank, because then when you leave it blank, somebody doesn't know, well, did he forget to fill out that square, or does that square not apply to what's going on? So by the time you finish a form, whether it be the logbook in the airplane or any other form, every box needs to have something written in it there. So, you know, CEP has tasking, both wartime and peacetime. Those of us in Hawaii wing need to be familiar with the op plan, the tsunami warning op plan. So as a scanner, you'd want to be familiar with that. When you do complete forms, be legible. Some references, this is an old reference here to CAP Reg 60-1. It's now 70-1. 60-3 has to do with emergency services, both ops and training. And then any other wing supplements to those things. Okay, a lot of material there. Important thing is I'm safe, understanding some of the missions of CAP, understanding the prime role of a scanner is looking out the airplane and everybody supports him. Those are probably the salient points.
So what are the responsibilities of an observer?
What are the responsibilities of an observer? Well, the first one would be doing the actual visual search. And also a observer is going to keep a log that keep track of the mission milestones as you go along there. Also assist in navigating to and from the search area or the area of responsibility, and also doing pre-flight items of the mission equipment like the raft, the LPUs, camera if it's a aerial photography mission, those kinds of things.